Welcome to the Paper Classroom 5-minute video tutorial aimed at the Level 3 Technical Certificate in Paper Making. In this session we're going to be talking about the operation of the schopper reigler kit. This is the diagram of the schopper reigler. We have a collection vessel there to collect the overflow. We have a cone here that collects the water that's passed through this wire. There's a spoiler cone there that stops swirling. There's an overflow into here. There's a restriction here. There we have a phosphor bronze wire mesh, very similar to a forming fabric. Here we have a holding vessel where we initially put our stock, and there we have a plug that's in place. So the way we operate the schopper reigler is to take approximately 2 grams of bone dry stock. Bone dry fibre, and don't ever try to get exactly 2 grams of bone dry fibre as a wet slurry, because you'll never ever do it. So the idea is to take approximately what you want and then make a correction afterwards. So we take 2 grams of fibre, we dilute it to 1000 mils, we pour it into here, we allow it to settle for a moment, and then we lift up the plug. What happens then, of course, is the fibres start to settle on this wire mesh, and the water tries to pass through the fibres and through the wire mesh. It drops down into this cone and it starts to drip out of here, but there's a restriction, so it can only come out at a certain speed. If it's coming down here a lot faster than it's coming out here, then the level will build up, it will overflow, and we will catch all the water that has overflown. If we take the example of a fibre that's had very, very little refining, then they'll be like pencils, they'll be long, they will be rigid, and the mat that they form here will be very, very open. That means that the water will drain through really quickly. It will come out of here slowly, a lot of it will overflow, a lot of it will come down here and fill up towards the top. So there's an example. And so we've got a value here, approximately 30 degrees schopper. If we now go to the other extreme, if we take a fibre that's been very, very well refined, again we take approximately 2 grams, we put it in a litre of water, we give it a stir up, we pour it in here, we wait for a moment, we pull out the plug, we let it drain through here. Because those fibres are now very much fibrillated, it'll be harder for the water to pass through, so it will come through here much slower. It's still coming out here at the same rate. Less of it will build up, less of it will overflow, and therefore we'll end up with a lower value. So there you can see 70. So the higher the number, the more work we've done on the fibre. In this case, 30 schopper reigler units, in this case 70 schopper reigler units. You have to be very careful when you're measuring schopper reigler values. One of the things that you must take care of is the temperature of the water. It should be the same all the time, ideally 20 degrees C. So when you're making up your initial 1 litre, you should take your stock, you should add water to it, dilute it to 1000 mils, stir it, use a thermometer, and make sure the temperature is right, because an error in temperature will mean an error in schopper reigler value. If the temperature is too hot, if it's say 30 degrees, that means the water is less viscous. Because the water is less viscous, it will come through quicker. If it comes through quicker, more will overflow. It will give you a value higher up here, so you will think you've done less work on the fibre than you've really done, and therefore you'll overwork the fibre. If on the other hand the water here is only 5 or 10 degrees, it's more viscous, it will be harder for it to go through. If it's harder for it to go through, less will overflow. So if less overflows, it will come down here. You will then think you've done more work on the fibre than you should have done, and you'll tend to back off on your refiners. Once you've taken this value, what you must do then is retrieve this pad, collect all the pulp, dry it to bone dry, weigh it accurately, and then there's a whole variety of ways. There are graphs and there are tables, and you then need to make a correction for what this value would have been had the pad been exactly 2 grams. So a summary of the schopper test: take approximately 2 grams of oven dry pulp, apply the correction after the test, and make sure that the temperature of the water is always the same. The standard says it should be 20 degrees C, but as long as it's always the same, that's the most important thing. Thank you for listening to this presentation, and if you need to contact us for any reason, please do so via any of this social media.